What do you mean? You spent what on renovations? My voice shook as I stared across the table at my father, Paul. $25,000, he said casually, leaning back in his chair. You wouldn't believe how much better the place looks. Really, Liv, you should be proud of yourself. I froze, gripping the edge of the table as his words sank in. Proud? He was talking like I'd volunteered to fund this project. That's my credit card, Dad. You stole from me. Paul shrugged, his smug expression unwavering. Stole is a strong word, Liv. We're family. It's not like I took it from a stranger. Besides, you've got a good job. You'll earn it back in no time. The audacity of his words left me momentarily speechless. My father had always been self-serving, but this crossed a line I didn't even know he could reach. My name is Olivia, and I've spent my entire adult life building a career I'm proud of. I'm a financial analyst, and saving money is second nature to me. Over the past 6 years, I've worked tirelessly to set myself up for a stable future. That $25,000 wasn't just some extra cash lying around. It was years of discipline, skipped vacations, and careful budgeting. Paul, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. He loved to talk big, dream big, and spend big, but never with his own money. Growing up, I learned quickly that he could justify anything, borrowing things he never returned, brushing off unpaid debts, and turning every favor into a joke. Relax, it's just family, he'd always say. This time, though, I wasn't laughing. Do you have any idea what that money meant to me? I said, my voice shaking with anger. Do you even care that you stole from your own daughter? Paul rolled his eyes like I was the one being unreasonable. Oh, stop being so dramatic. It's just money. I had a few things around the house that needed fixing, and you were in a position to help. You didn't ask me, I snapped. You stole my credit card without telling me. That's not helping. That's theft. Paul shrugged again, finishing off his wine. Well, what's done is done. No point in crying over spilled milk. My stomach churned as I stared at him, unable to believe his complete lack of remorse. For years, he'd gotten away with his selfishness because he was charming enough to talk his way out of trouble. But not this time. This time, he'd gone too far. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Paul's words echoing in my mind. You'll make it back in no time. How could he act so casually after stealing from me? I'd worked tirelessly for years to save that money, only for him to blow it all on a whim. Finally, I got out of bed and grabbed my laptop. Logging into my credit card account, I scrolled through the transactions, my stomach twisting with each one. There it was. $7,500 at a home improvement store, $12,000 for roofing supplies, $5,500 for landscaping. Every single charge screamed of his self-serving indulgence. I clicked on the details, looking for anything that might give me leverage. My heart raced as I spotted the shipping addresses for the orders. They all pointed to Paul's house. I felt a flicker of vindication. This wasn't just a suspicion anymore. I had proof. The next morning, I called the bank to report the fraud. The representative on the other end of the line listened patiently as I explained everything, from the stolen card to the unauthorized charges. Do you know who made the transactions? She asked. Yes, I said, my voice steady. It was my father. There was a pause before she spoke again. In that case, we'll need to escalate this to our fraud investigation team. They may require additional information from you, and depending on the circumstances, law enforcement could become involved. Law enforcement. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't how I wanted things to go, but what choice did I have? Paul had left me no option. If he thought he could walk all over me just because we were family, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Later that day, I told my best friend Maya about what had happened. She listened quietly as I vented, her expression darkening with every word. That's beyond selfish, Liv, she said finally. You need to hold him accountable. He can't keep treating you like this. I know, I said, running a hand through my hair. But he's my dad. It feels so messy. Messy or not, this isn't just about money, Maya replied. It's about respect, and he clearly doesn't respect you. Her words hit me hard. She was right. This wasn't just about the money, it was about setting boundaries, something I should have done a long time ago. The following day, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the fraud report I'd filed with the bank. Paul had crossed so many lines over the years, but this was something else entirely. My mind kept replaying his smug expression from that dinner, the way he dismissed me as if I were overreacting. It was time to confront him. I wasn't sure what I expected, an apology maybe, or at least an ounce of remorse. What I got was a masterclass in deflection. When I arrived at his house, Paul was outside admiring his freshly landscaped yard. "Looks good, doesn't it?" he said, beaming. "All thanks to you." My blood boiled. "Thanks to me?" I snapped. "You mean thanks to the $25,000 you stole from me?" Paul sighed, shaking his head like I was the unreasonable one. "Liv, we've been through this. It's family money. I didn't steal anything, I just borrowed it. And honestly, you're better off for it. This place needed some serious work." I stared at him, stunned by his audacity. "You didn't borrow anything. Borrowing requires permission, Paul, and you never asked me. You just took it." He crossed his arms, his expression hardening. "You're young. You've got time to earn it back. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? I'm your father, for God's sake. I've done so much for you over the years. Can't you let this one thing go?" "Done so much for me?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Like what, exactly?" "You've been taking from me my entire life, Paul. This is just the first time you got caught." His face darkened. "Watch your tone," he warned. "You're being ungrateful. I didn't have to raise you, you know. I could have let your mom handle it all on her own." The words cut deep, but I refused to let him see me flinch. "Ungrateful? I'm the one who's had to clean up after your mistakes for years. I've forgiven you for so much, but this is too far." For the first time, Paul looked uneasy. "What are you saying, Liv? Are you really going to take this outside the family?" "I already did," I said firmly. "The fraud investigation is underway. The bank is involved. And if you think I'm going to back down, you don't know me as well as you think." The call from the bank's fraud team came early the next morning. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, as the investigator, Mr. Bennett, outlined the next steps. "We've reviewed the charges and the details you provided," he said. "Since the shipping addresses match your father's home, it's clear the transactions were unauthorized. We'll need a formal statement from you, and we'll likely escalate this to local authorities for further investigation." Hearing the words "local authorities" sent a wave of nerves through me. "Does that mean he could face charges?" I asked cautiously. "Yes," Mr. Bennett replied matter-of-factly. "It's theft. Plain and simple. The amount involved makes it a serious offense. It's up to the police to determine the exact course of action, but I'd recommend preparing yourself for that possibility." I thanked him and hung up, my hands trembling. This was really happening. For years, Paul had treated boundaries as suggestions, his charm and audacity allowing him to skate by without consequences. But now, his actions were catching up to him. I called Maya immediately to tell her what was happening. "He's going to lose it when the police get involved," I said, pacing the living room. "What if it ruins our relationship forever?" Maya didn't mince words. "Liv, what relationship? He's been walking all over you for years, and every time you let it slide, he just pushes further. This isn't about ruining anything, it's about protecting yourself." Her words hit me like a slap. She was right. I'd spent so much of my life trying to keep the peace, afraid to rock the boat, that I hadn't noticed how much of myself I'd sacrificed in the process. "I don't want to feel like this anymore," I admitted, my voice breaking. "Every time I stand up for myself, I feel like I'm the bad guy." "You're not the bad guy," Maya said firmly. "You're the one person holding him accountable. That takes courage, Liv. Don't let him make you feel otherwise." Her words stuck with me as I sat back down and stared at the fraud report on my laptop. This wasn't just about the money, it was about drawing a line in the sand. Paul needed to learn that actions have consequences, and if the only way to teach him that was through a fraud investigation, so be it. I picked up my phone and dialed Mr. Bennett back. "I'll file the statement today," I said. The fallout came faster than I expected. That evening, as I sat down to dinner, my phone lit up with Paul's name. I hesitated before answering, knowing full well this wouldn't be a pleasant conversation. "Olivia," he started, his voice sharp, "I just got off the phone with the bank. Are you serious about this? You actually filed a fraud report against me?" "Yes, Paul," I said firmly. "I did. You stole $25,000 from me. What did you think was going to happen?" His tone turned defensive. "I didn't steal it. I told you, it's family money. I was going to pay you back eventually, but now you've gone and made it a federal case. Do you have any idea what kind of trouble this could cause me?" "I didn't make this a federal case," I replied, my voice steady. "You did that the moment you took my credit card without permission. Actions have consequences, Paul." There was a long pause before he spoke again, his voice low and threatening. "You're being ridiculous. You're blowing this out of proportion just to prove a point. What's next? Are you going to drag me to court too?" "If that's what it takes," I shot back. "You've spent years walking all over me, treating my boundaries like they don't exist. This isn't about proving a point. It's about protecting myself." "You're unbelievable," he hissed. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" I laughed bitterly. "Done for me? Like what, Paul? Taking credit for everything I've worked for? Borrowing money you never paid back? Or maybe it was the time you left me to clean up your messes while you ran off and pretended nothing happened." The line went silent for a moment. Then in a voice colder than I'd ever heard, he said, "You're going to regret this, Olivia." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me shaking with a mix of anger and fear. This was exactly why I'd spent so many years avoiding conflict with Paul, because every time I stood my ground, he found a way to make me feel like the villain. Later, I called Maya to vent. "He actually said I'll regret this," I told her, my voice tight with frustration. "Let him stew," she said firmly. "He's just mad he's finally being held accountable. Don't let him scare you into backing down." Her words were comforting, but the unease lingered. I wasn't backing down, but I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. 2 days later, the call I'd been dreading came. It wasn't from Paul this time, it was from my mom. The moment I answered, her voice came through, sharp and exasperated. "Olivia, what are you doing? Your father just called me in a panic. He said you're trying to ruin his life." I took a deep breath, already bracing for the guilt trip I knew was coming. "I'm not ruining his life, Mom. He stole $25,000 from me. I reported the fraud to the bank because that's what you do when someone takes your money." "He's your father," she snapped, as though that was all the explanation needed. "And I'm his daughter," I said, struggling to keep my voice calm. "But that didn't stop him from stealing from me, did it?" Mom sighed heavily, her tone shifting to one of weary disappointment. "You know how he is, Liv. He doesn't mean any harm. He just doesn't think things through. Couldn't you have handled this quietly, within the family?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Handled it quietly?" I repeated. "Mom, he spent $25,000 of my money without asking. How was I supposed to handle that quietly?" "He's your father," she repeated, as though that justified everything. "He's under a lot of stress right now with the house and the bills. He didn't mean to hurt you." I felt my jaw tighten. It's always excuses with him, isn't it? He's always under stress, or he didn't think it through, or he didn't mean it. Meanwhile, I'm the one left cleaning up his mess. "Olivia," she said, her voice softening into a pleading tone. "Please, just drop this. The investigation is going to destroy him. You know how he gets when he feels cornered. He's already talking about how you're turning the family against him." I closed my eyes, trying to block out the swirl of guilt and frustration building inside me. "I'm not turning anyone against him, Mom. He did this to himself. and I'm not dropping it. For the first time, there was silence on her end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was colder. Well, don't come crying to me when this all blows up in your face. You've made your decision. Just remember that. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, the weight of her words settling over me. I wanted to cry, but instead I called Maya. Mom thinks I'm overreacting, I said, pacing the living room. Of course she does, Maya replied. She spent her whole life enabling him. But this isn't about her, Liv. It's about you. You're doing the right thing. As much as I wanted to believe her, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling in my gut. A week later, the fraud investigation began picking up speed. I received an update from the bank's fraud department. All charges had been officially flagged as unauthorized, and law enforcement had been notified. The investigator, Mr. Bennett, told me that local police might contact me soon to verify my statement. The news filled me with both relief and anxiety. For years, Paul had treated consequences as something that happened to other people. He'd always found ways to talk himself out of trouble, using charm or guilt to deflect blame. But now, there was a paper trail, and it was out of my hands. Later that afternoon, as I sat in my office at work, I got a text from Maya. How's it going with the fraud thing? Any updates? I quickly texted back. Bank is escalating it. Police are getting involved soon. I'm nervous, but it's the right thing to do. Her reply was immediate. Proud of you. You're stronger than you think. Her words gave me a small sense of comfort, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. That evening, I went to Paul's house. I hadn't planned to confront him again, but I couldn't stop myself. The closer I got to his place, the angrier I felt. When I knocked on the door, he opened it with a smug grin. Olivia, he said, leaning against the frame. Come to lecture me some more? No, Paul, I said evenly. I came to tell you that the bank has escalated the fraud case. The police will be contacting you soon. His smile faltered for the first time, but he quickly recovered. The police? Oh, come on, Liv. You're not actually going to let this go that far, are you? It's not up to me anymore, I replied. You made this bed and now you're going to lie in it. He stepped back, crossing his arms. You're really going to let the police come after your own father? For what? A little misunderstanding? Stop calling it a misunderstanding, I snapped. You stole from me, Paul. This isn't about family or generosity. It's about you finally facing the consequences of your actions. His face darkened and he took a step closer. Don't act like you're better than me, Olivia. You wouldn't even have that money if it weren't for me raising you. I laughed bitterly. Raising me? You mean using me as your personal ATM? That ends now. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his confidence visibly shaken. The next few days were a whirlwind. The police called to schedule a meeting, asking me to bring all relevant documents, including the fraud report and transaction history. Sitting in that small, sterile room at the police station felt surreal. As I handed over the papers, I couldn't help but wonder how Paul would handle being questioned by the authorities. Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Taylor, the officer said as I finished giving my statement. We'll be contacting Mr. Taylor shortly to hear his side of the story. His side of the story. I almost laughed at the thought. Paul's version would undoubtedly be full of excuses and deflections, but this time, charm wouldn't save him. There was hard evidence tying the transactions to his address, and no amount of sweet-talking could erase the paper trail. That evening, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was sharp, more accusatory than the last time we'd spoken. The police showed up at your father's house today. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was for him? I sighed, bracing myself for another guilt trip. Mom, I told you this was coming. He brought this on himself. I didn't force him to steal my credit card. She didn't seem to hear me. He said you're trying to ruin his life, Olivia. How can you do this to your own family? I'm not ruining his life, I said firmly. I'm holding him accountable. If he didn't want this to happen, he shouldn't have stolen from me. It's that simple. There was silence on the other end, followed by a heavy sigh. You've made your point, Liv. But don't you think this has gone far enough? I clenched my jaw, swallowing the lump of frustration rising in my throat. It's not about making a point. It's about boundaries. I've spent years letting him cross them, and I'm done. If you can't understand that, I don't know what else to say. She hung up without another word, leaving me with the same hollow feeling I'd had after our last conversation. Despite the tension, there was an odd sense of relief as I drove home that night. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally standing up for myself. Paul had always taken without asking, always assumed I'd forgive and forget. But now he was learning that actions have consequences, and that knowledge was more satisfying than I'd ever expected. The fallout from the investigation hit Paul harder than I expected. The police made it clear that the evidence against him was solid. Unauthorized transactions, shipping addresses linked to his home, and the fraud report I'd filed with the bank. He couldn't wiggle out of this one, no matter how much charm or excuses he threw around. When I heard he'd been officially charged with theft, I felt an overwhelming mix of emotions. There was relief. Finally, someone was holding him accountable. But there was also sadness. As much as I wanted him to face the consequences of his actions, it was still hard to see my own father brought so low. Mom called me again the night I heard about the charges. This time, her tone was subdued. "Your father's a mess, Liv," she said, her voice trembling. "He's scared. He doesn't know what to do." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Maybe he should have thought about that before he stole from me," I said calmly. "You really won't help him?" she asked, almost pleading. "You're his daughter." "And he's my father," I replied. "But that didn't stop him from stealing from me, did it? He's not the victim here, Mom. I'm done letting him play that card." For the first time, she didn't argue. There was a long silence before she finally said, "I just hope you're doing okay through all this." Her words caught me off guard. I wasn't used to her checking in on me. It was usually about smoothing things over for Paul. "I'm fine," I said after a moment. "Actually, I'm better than fine. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my life again." After we hung up, I sat on the couch and let the weight of it all sink in. This wasn't just about the $25,000 or the fraud report. It was about finally standing up for myself, drawing a line that couldn't be crossed again. Paul had spent years taking advantage of my generosity and trust, and for the first time, I'd said, "No more." As difficult as the process had been, I felt a sense of closure starting to settle in. The guilt that had lingered for weeks was fading, replaced by something I hadn't felt in years: pride. The day I received the final update from the bank, I knew I'd made the right choice. They confirmed that the fraudulent charges had been reversed and the funds restored to my account. For the first time in weeks, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. I'd done it. I'd stood up to Paul, navigated the fallout with my family, and reclaimed what was mine. The old me might have let it slide, rationalizing that it wasn't worth the trouble. But this time, I'd drawn a line, and I'd stayed firm. Paul, on the other hand, wasn't doing so well. According to Mom, he was trying to negotiate a plea deal to avoid jail time. "He's devastated," she'd told me on our last call. "But I think he finally understands how much he hurt you." I wasn't so sure about that. Paul had always been good at playing the victim when it suited him, but whether or not he truly understood didn't matter to me anymore. This wasn't about him. It was about me. Over the next few weeks, I started to feel a new sense of clarity. My relationship with my mom was still strained, but I was okay with that. I wasn't going to spend my life tiptoeing around Paul's ego or bending over backward to keep the peace. Maya came over one evening, bringing a bottle of wine to celebrate the end of the ordeal. "To you," she said, raising her glass, "for proving that boundaries are non-negotiable." We clinked glasses, and I couldn't help but laugh. "I guess I needed a $25,000 wake-up call," I said. "Better now than never," Maya replied. "You're stronger than you think, Liv. Don't forget that." In the weeks that followed, I poured myself into my work, feeling a renewed sense of focus and determination. My savings account was intact again, and I'd learned a lesson that would stick with me for the rest of my life. Trust is earned, not given freely, even when it comes to family. As for Paul, I didn't know what the future held for our relationship, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid to keep my distance. I wasn't afraid to say no. I'd taken back control of my life, and that was worth more than any amount of money.